We definitely want to hear from experts that we've been speaking to this whole entire trial. Joining us now is Andrew Rodenhouse, and I believe Tanya is in the corner. Andrew, I want to start with you. What is your initial reaction to hearing that this was a mistrial?
Well, I'm actually at the courthouse as we speak, and the buzz started about probably 40 minutes ago that something was going to go on. There was a lot of speculation around the courthouse, and then when we heard that it was a hung jury, I think everyone kind of felt that we were headed in that direction, anyways. The interesting question is going to be how they're going to go forward.
Tanya, I'd love to hear from you as well. What is your reaction to hearing that this was a mistrial?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest. When they came back early on saying that they were hung, I was surprised that they spent the entire day deliberating. So, what I want to point out to the audience is the jury really listened to the judge's deadlocked jury instruction. She said to them, hey, it's okay to have a difference of opinion, go back, deliberate, consider each other's opinions. So, they spent the entire day yesterday deliberating. I suspect what happened is toward the end of the day, they probably had decided they were, in fact, hopelessly deadlocked, but probably decided to go home and sleep on it, come back in the morning and see if anyone's minds had changed. So, in that respect, I'm not surprised that we got a note from the jury early on this morning that they were, in fact, deadlocked. So, this played out consistently with my personal experience and hung juries in cases that I've tried. So, in that respect, not surprised the way that this played out.
Tanya, I want to ask you, what is the path forward for this case at this point? There are a couple of different ways this could go down in the future, but at this point, for the audience that's watching at home, what are some of the things that they might be able to see moving forward on this case?
Right. So, as your reporters indicated, it now goes back to Chris Becker to decide what, if anything, he wants to do going forward. In our legal system, with respect to criminal cases, it's the prosecutor who has the sole charging decision. And so there's an old adage that we as trial lawyers have. There's the case you prepare, the case you try, and the case you wish you would have tried. So I suspect that both sides are going to reflect on what happened in this trial, what evidentiary hurdles they encountered and overcame. And that's the same for Mr. Becker. He's going to have to take a long, hard look at how this trial played out and decide what he wants to do going forward. There's a lot of time, effort, and money involved in this case, and not that money matters. I mean, that's not the prosecutor's concern, but from the general perspective, there's been a lot of resources poured into this case, and that all will reflect in how he decides what he wants to do going forward.
And Andrew, I'd love to hear your opinion on this decision in regards to the whole entire trial. Does essentially a hung jury leading to a mistrial show how difficult this trial was for jurors to debate on? Or I guess, what can you gather from the case going into the decision?
Well, what I would be really curious about, and this is what the both sides, now that the jury has been declared hung, the jurors are now free to talk to the parties and to anybody else that they want. And I would be interested to find out, like, what was the split? Was it pretty even, or was there one holdout one way or the other? And what were those people thinking? Because now they can talk to those jurors and find out. And I think that that would be part of the decision by Mr. Becker on whether or not he wants to try the case again.
So just for clarification, the prosecution defense can talk to the jurors and hear what they said, or who can do that?
Anybody can ask the jurors. I mean, I would suggest not hounding them, but anybody can. The jurors are now free to talk to anybody they wish to about the case. They're no longer what we would consider legally as, quote, sequestered, and so they can talk to anybody. And so oftentimes we'll talk to jurors after the case is over. Sometimes I'll wait a few days and see if they're willing to talk to me and ask them questions about what they thought went well, what they thought they didn't go well, what was the deliberation like. And I would imagine that they'll probably get some space right now, but at some point in time down the road, someone's going to be asking them what their thoughts were. And I think that's going to play in part to what Mr. Becker's decision is going to be. I wouldn't expect him to make a decision immediately.
As we have you two here with us live on the air, we want to make sure that you both know, and of course our audience at home, that we are waiting on a press conference as we get this mistrial ruling here in the Christopher Schurr trial. I'm curious to both of you, to your question there, after this trial, the people involved, so the prosecution and defense, they're allowed to ask the jury questions. As you said, they're allowed to talk to people about this case. I'm curious what questions, or what, if you were in the position that Prosecutor Becker is in, and of course the defense side, what questions would you both be asking those jurors?
Well, I would just want to know, like, what happened in deliberations. Who was thinking what? How impactful was certain testimony? I would ask them what they thought of specific witnesses. What did you think about the presentation? It's a fact-finding mission, and so you ask a lot of open-ended questions, and you have to go into it with no preconceived notion on what you think happened. You want to ask them what they thought happened, because you don't want to. First of all, you want to find out actually what was going through their minds, because if you're going to try the case again, probably jurors in the future are going to have those similar notions.
And Tanya, we'd love to hear from you as well. What would you be asking after this?
Yeah, I would ask exactly what Andrew just suggested, but then I would narrow in a little bit more and say, what specific issues did it come down to that you could not agree on? So yes, I want the big picture, like what did they think of certain witnesses? What did they think of the experts on both sides? But at the end of the day, as we've talked through this entire case, really the issue in this case all along has been a single issue. Was Christopher Schurr justified in shooting Patrick Lyoya? And so there had to be a fact or some facts that they specifically talked about and couldn't agree upon. And that would be really important going forward if this case is retried, because it would give the parties the opportunity to address that the next time the case is tried.
Something that the jury was allowed to consider after the testimony was done with is that voluntary manslaughter charge. Do you think that might have confused jurors at all? And maybe that's where we ended up. I know I'm asking you to speculate on that, but do you think that might have confused jurors when they tacked that on as something that they could consider?
I certainly think it could have. And if they do, in fact, interview the jurors and the jurors are willing to speak, it would be interesting to hear the jurors' answers on that. Sitting back on this and looking in, I certainly think when there had been no mention of manslaughter until the very end of the case and it gets thrown in there, and then the elements, depending on how the judge read the instructions to the juror, are very similar to second-degree murder, I think it could have confused them.
Andrew, I want to bring you back in. You were talking about it could take a couple days before Prosecutor Becker does decide to ask the juror questions. Can you give us anything in regards to a timeline if he does decide on a trial? We waited 3 years for this trial. Should people now sit and wait another? Can they expect to wait another 3 years? Could it happen in a year? Kind of what is your experience with a trial being retried again?
Well, I can tell you this, is that it depends on the judge's docket. The judge could potentially have trials already scheduled. And then the judge would have to decide whether or not she wants to move a trial in order to try this one again. And so that's where the judge is going to have a lot of discretion in how she wants to proceed going forward. I've had judges say, declare a mistrial and say, we'll see you back here Monday morning, and we start over. And I've had judges say, look, my docket's not clear for another 9 months, and then it gets scheduled for then. And so, and in the meantime, there could potentially be interlocutory appeals, appealing some of the issues they had at the original trial in order to resolve them ahead of the next trial. And so that's a huge question, and I'm telling you, I'm going to give you the Professor Tanya Kraus-Phelan legal answer. It depends.
I'm sorry, and I have another question in regards to a trial or a plea agreement. Is it one or the other, or can both happen? Can Becker propose a plea agreement and the defense say, no, I don't want to do that, and then he say, okay, we'll go to a trial? Or how does that even work?
That is an absolute possibility. It depends on what the jury's thoughts were. and what the jury split was, that the prosecutor could propose a resolution that the parties could just agree to. The prosecutor's office is gonna need to, and I know Mr. Becker will do this. I mean, this is how the Kent County Prosecutor's Office works, is they will be in consultation with Mr. Loyola's family, and ask them, what are your thoughts on this? Is this something that we can want to try to resolve with a plea agreement, or are you guys? And so he'll definitely consult with them before making any decision.